The Orange Zone, sponsored by Billy Whitaker Cars and Trucks and Apex Entertainment.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to an Orange Zone overtime episode. That's Ashley Wenskoski. I'm Samantha Croston. Happy holiday season. Hope you guys are having a great week. We came back on the mic because we had something specific that we wanted to get into. It's been the big question on everyone's minds, and it's not answered yet. Is Kyle McCord coming back or not? Yes or no? Hi, Ashley. How are you doing?
Hi. Can't wait to talk about this topic. I know it's at the forefront of everyone's minds. Stay or go, Kyle. You know what's unfortunate?
What?
Is now that the season's over, there's no more press conferences, there's no more player availability. Like, we are about to find out this Kyle McCord news, along with the rest of you, probably in the form of social media posts. That makes me nervous.
It is going to be the most crisp, like New Year's Eve style announcement. Like, you just know it's going to come at the most horrific time.
I don't have,
No, I know. I get it. Listen, what we know at this point, right? Here's what we know. Here's what we know. We know that the NCAA has been informed that they want to be looking into this. We know that the university is trying to make this happen. We know that Kyle McCord in a few interviews has been sort of sly about it, is the word I would use. He had a couple of smirks.
Smirkgate.
Now, what we don't do on this podcast is start rumors, and what we don't do is speculate.
Right.
However, we like to show you and tell you all the things that we visually saw with our own eyes. It definitely seemed like from the things that he was answering on certain shows that he was on, that, it was possible that he was thinking about it. And now I'm going to go into my opinion realm.
Sure.
My opinion realm is that if he is granted a waiver, an extra year, I do think he'll take it. However, we don't even know yet whether or not he's been granted the year. We know that the first time that they tried to apply for it, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
He doesn't know either. The first time they tried to apply for it, I believe it got denied.
Correct.
So now they are trying again.
It's an appeal.
And that's the place that we're at right now, essentially living with all of you on the edge of our seats.
Yes. So here's some facts to lay it all out for you. So the deadline is actually way sooner than anyone might think for this declaring for the NFL draft. January 6th for underclassmen is the deadline to submit petitions for special eligibility. And then there's this thing listed as the hard deadline as January 15th. Either way, it's right around the corner.
Yep.
It's in the next week that we're going to know this information, most likely. There's been some rumors, I will call it. I do not know if this is true the NCAA offices are closed for the holidays. What I've seen is that they may reopen on January 3rd. I do not know if that is true, but I do know that they were closed for the holidays to some extent.
Okay.
The point of the story is, so you gave your full opinion yet or not fully?
I gave my opinion in the sense that I think if he is allowed to stay, then he will. But let's actually back up. That's my backup reverse sound. just for a minute, because again, if people don't understand why this is even happening, I feel it's important that we at least explain that part. Mm-hmm. Why is Kyle McCord even applying for an extra year when he has played 4 years already? So obviously, as I'm sure many of you know, every college athlete gets 4 years to play a sport. And in most sports, even if you play one game in the season, like for example, me, I was a lacrosse player. If I played one game in the season, that's it. That's a year of eligibility burn. But in football specifically, you can play up to 4 games and still hold on to a year of eligibility, which is a really cool thing that they did.
A redshirt.
A redshirt year. And that can happen for a number of reasons. You aren't getting a lot of playing time, you get hurt, etc. It's so that you can hold on to that extra year, help to increase your draft stock or whatever it is that you're trying to do with your life. Kyle McCord, in 2021, which I believe was his freshman season. Yes, that's right. 2021, 22, 23, 24. Yes. That was his freshman season. In his freshman season, he had already played in 4 games at Ohio State as the backup to CJ Stroud.
There was drama behind that.
There was drama behind that whole situation. Now, if he had only played 4 games, that would have been fine. And they could have said that's his redshirt year. But in the second to last regular season game,
along comes Ryan Day.
They are playing, I believe, against Michigan State, but don't quote me on it. And the score is somewhere in the realm of 51-7.
Smoking them.
I mean, smoking them.
Get CJ Stroud out of there.
They say, we want CJ Stroud out of there. They put in Kyle McCord. It burns his year of eligibility, which sucked. It was like the 4th quarter. It was a throwaway game. He was a freshman, and everybody was like, how can this be? Now, even if that's for lack of a better word, shitty situation, Does that mean that he just gets an extra year? Well, it depends. If you want and you go and you want to look this up more, if you look up NCAA waiver eligibility, how can a player get one? You will find the most amazing resources that lay out every reason why, because there is a few of them. You can sometimes get it for an injury situation. Sometimes there's a death in the family, and I think even that can have something to do with it.
Mental health, physical health.
Yeah, so there are a lot of ways, and I honestly think, I'm going to have to look into this more, but I think there's even one that does pertain to a situation such as this. The coach didn't necessarily understand the rules behind the eligibility situation. Kyle McCord obviously didn't have an option to be like, no, I'm going to opt out. Your coach said you're playing, so he played. I think that they're going to explain and elaborate on that whole situation and be like, he got kind of screwed here. Is this something that you would be willing to review? But allegedly, so far, from what we know, the first time around, the NCAA said that's not good enough. It's not a good enough reason.
Yeah, so he's under the appeals process right now. Worth pointing out that situation with Ryan Day burning his red shirt was part of the issues that he had at Ohio State that led to him transferring to Syracuse. Not all of it, but that was where kind of the contentiousness with the McCord family and Ohio State and Ryan Day began, was that red shirt situation. Now, allegedly, Ryan Day has had to sign off on the waiver for the NCAA for Kyle to do this, and he got his signature, and that's what's going on. So maybe they've mended some of those bridges.
But I'm so happy you said that, because now that makes sense to me, because I'm telling you, I saw a bullet somewhere in there that said one of the reasons could be because your coach did not necessarily realize at the time that he was burning your eligibility. So it completely makes sense to me that Ryan Day has to sign off on it.
Yep.
So happy that he did that. That's great work.
Yes.
But at this point, it's still up to everybody else, the powers that be, to decide what's going to happen. Now we're going to tell you what we think should happen. Here's Ashley Wenskoski with more.
All right, so I kind of have a devil and an angel on my shoulder in this process. I'm going to bring you both sides of the picture, because I honestly have not decided yet, if I was Kyle McCord, what I would do if I was faced with this little predicament. You have the first side of the argument, I guess, for Syracuse fans, devil side of the argument. Let's start with Kyle McCord should declare for the NFL draft, and he should be done with college. What does that bring Kyle McCord at this particular time? Well, on most draft boards... money. Okay, so there's that. On most draft boards, he hasn't been near a first-round pick. It's kind of been a third-round, third-day situation, even a fourth round on some draft boards. Not really where if I'm Kyle McCord, I want to be seeing my name to get the highest signing bonus and all that. So that's where that is right now. That's just a fact of the situation. He started for 1 year at Ohio State, 1 year at Syracuse. He's a 2-year college starter. He obviously put up gaudy, insane numbers in those 2 years, but we know how things ended at Ohio State. There was just a little bit of controversy there. If he comes back to Syracuse for a 3rd year as a starter, the numbers that he will finish out college with are going to be just completely outrageous. They already are. That's that side of the picture, right? Your draft stock is not really as high as you want it to be right now if you're Kyle McCord. Also, there's a tougher schedule next year, right? So if I'm Kyle McCord, maybe I'm looking at and I know Kyle McCord isn't doing this, but you look at the Syracuse schedule next year for football, Tennessee, Clemson, Notre Dame, all of it. You're probably not going to win 10 games. I said probably, maybe, but you have a less likely chance of winning 10 games and having this great, first year Fran Brown. He's on a high point right now, and I think we can all agree with that. He is at the top of the mountain in terms of setting the ACC single-season passing yards record. I mean, the receivers that he had this year, there will be no more Rondé Gadsden. There will be no more Jackson Meeks. He's on a high point right now. But that's the side of, if I'm a Syracuse fan, maybe I do want to go to the draft because, okay, my draft stock's not as high as it could be, but I'm on the top of the mountain. It's a risk that you're going to fall a little bit down the mountain, I guess I would say, next year. Now, the angel side of it, for Syracuse fans, that he's coming back, well, why would he want to come back? He would want to come back, like I started to say, get those stats up, get the draft stock higher. Next year's draft class in terms of quarterbacks throughout college football is a little less stacked. This year you have the likes of Shedeur Sanders. You have guys that are really, really, really going to go high on that draft board. Next year you don't have that. McCord, if he replicated the season that he had this year and what he's been shown to do, would really be high on those draft boards, hypothetically. Now, he's not a mobile quarterback. That's just a whole nother conversation. The draft and the NFL likes those guys a little bit more, but he has shown improvement in that area this year, and maybe he would continue to next year. In terms of why he would come back to Syracuse, well, somebody's really going to have to step up NIL-wise. That's just the moral of the story. Somebody's going to have to, whether it's a donor, whether, I don't know how much the school has involvement in that, Kyle McCord's going to need to get paid if Kyle McCord is going to be in Central New York for another year. I think the benefits to that, right? He would become, a legendary quarterback at Syracuse. I think he already is, but the one season thing kind of is like, well, can you put him on that Mount Rushmore? He only played here for 1 year. If he plays here for 2 years, he's squarely in that conversation. Does he really care about that? I don't know. I'm not Kyle McCord. There's a lot to think about with this decision because obviously once you make it, you can't go back. You either declare for the draft and that's that, or you don't and you come back to college.
So what should he do?
I don't think he can lose. I don't really think that either way he's making a bad decision. But I do, our boss, Sean Carroll. So let me tell you where I am at with this whole debate. I thought that there was no way Kyle McCord was coming back. Then, when this all became an appeal process, I changed my thinking because I was like, why would he care enough to appeal the decision and really go through all of this multiple times with the NCAA if he didn't intend on coming back? That seems like extra work to me, and that seems like why would one do that? Then our boss, Sean Carroll, has an opinion, and I'll tell you what it is. He thinks Kyle McCord in no way, shape, or form is coming back to Syracuse. It would be a stupid decision. His stock is as high as it's ever going to be. Why risk, A, the injury, and B, the fall off next year by going through all that? Just go out on a high note and take your, what's the term, like gambling at a table, take your money and ride off into the sunset. That's Sean Carroll's opinion. And he has indoctrinated me a little bit because in some senses, I think he's right. I think it is a risk to go out. You're at the top of the mountain. If you don't go out now, you are risking, what if he gets hurt in week 4 next year? You're risking that.
But you say you're at the top of the mountain. You don't know that for sure. What if they win 10 games next season? What if they make the college football playoff?
I know.
Then it wasn't the top of the mountain at all. It was the middle.
I know.
So that's the hard part.
I guess it's true. You don't know fully if you're at the top of the mountain. I don't know. Honestly, like I know this isn't good. This is not the content everybody wants, but if I'm Kyle McCord, I don't know because I think monetarily, I think that an extra year of NIL, which there's been some, again, rumors, but some crazy, we'll just say in the millions numbers floated around for his NIL next season. Take another year of that while you can. Guaranteed money in college. You're going to be a college kid making $1 million+ and you get to play football in college. Take that and then hypothetically improve my draft stock for next year, get drafted higher, get a higher signing bonus. You are up there maybe, he finished 10th in the Heisman voting this year. Maybe you're top 3 in Heisman voting next year. So if I'm Kyle McCord, that all looks really appealing to me. And I'm not going to lie. On the other hand, it's a risk. But this goes along with, and I know that we're going to get into in a minute, the Cam Ward conversation. All of this is a risk, right? You could go out there and you could get hurt any game on the football field.
It's a risk either way because also if you, just because he decides to declare for the NFL draft doesn't even mean he's going to end up on a team. That's a risk. What happens if once you make that decision, you can't come back and play more football and improve your draft stock?
Right.
Listen, I understand where you're coming from because I sort of feel in the middle too, obviously with the facts laid out. But I think that if he can come back, I do think he will. And I do think if he can come back, I think he should. Because it's not like he is, I get that feeling of he's at the top of the mountain right now. But I really just don't think we actually know what the top of the mountain is.
True.
He's not in the top 3 already. If he's in the top 3 for Heisman voting, go.
Right.
But he top 10. He's not going to get drafted anywhere near the top. I don't think that money's the only thing that matters to Kyle McCord. And that's why I say I think he should stay. I think he wants to play. I think he wants to be a good quarterback with a legacy and with a name that people remember. And that when you say the name Kyle McCord, people have really great things to say about that person. And you're right. In Syracuse here, either way they would. I don't think he's doing it just for Syracuse, but you want to talk about even the money. If the numbers are really in the millions, is that more than he'd be getting if he declared?
It's probably a smarter financial decision to stay, which is what I was trying to say. You take a year of guaranteed NIL million, and then you're gonna hopefully improve your draft stock.
So if the money is non-existent, or it's not a problem,
Sure.
If the money is in favor of Syracuse, then really the question you're asking yourself, as far as improving the draft stock, injury aside, is do I believe in myself enough to do it?
And I think he does.
And do I believe in the team enough to get there?
No, well, I think those are 2 different questions next season because I'm going to say something that's going to be a little controversial.
Go ahead.
I think Kyle McCord, I don't think Kyle McCord is a leader and he has that winning mentality. I don't think Kyle McCord is looking at the schedule next year and being like, I can't do that and I can't beat those teams. He came from Ohio State. He did beat a lot of those caliber teams. I don't think Kyle McCord has a question in himself. What I do think, if he has a conversation about this with Fran Brown, what the conversation is really is, do we feel confident that next year, and Kyle McCord's not going to get not drafted highly because they went 8-4. You know what I mean? It's that doesn't all come down on Kyle McCord.
I feel like Sanders is a good example of that.
Right, Sanders is a good example of that. But I think he is going to want Fran Brown to tell him, here is our plan for 2025. Here's what we're bringing in the portal. Here's what we got coming in with high school recruits. You know, you're losing Gadsden. You're losing Jackson Meeks. You're 2 of your 3 top receivers. You might be losing LaQuinn Allen, although I have a theory that might go along with the McCord decision, but that's another topic. And here's the plan we have in place so that we're not going to go 6-6, to be quite frank.
My point is all of those things work in tandem.
Yeah.
If Kyle McCord leaves, everybody else probably leaves too. It's a totally different situation for Syracuse, which is not his concern. But if he stays, now there is going to be a different plan. Fran Brown is going to, and the thing is, if he stays, Fran Brown's going to be able to bring in better guys because they know they're coming with Kyle McCord.
Yes.
So it's almost like, what comes first? What can Fran Brown really promise that isn't empty until Kyle McCord makes that decision? He doesn't know exactly the kinds of and the caliber of players that he's going to be able to bring in until they actually commit. But I think he'll at least go to Kyle McCord with a plan. If you stay, these are the kinds of players that will be able to get in with you because everyone saw what you did this year now. You have this brilliant resume of all the things you were able to do. Now we can work on getting you those weapons because people are going to want to come play with you. I think Kyle McCord is such a leader on this team to the point where he's almost like a side coach. Like I could see him attending a lot of those meetings. He's probably talking to a lot of these players, making sure the chemistry works. Like everything runs through him.
Yep.
But my point being, I do think that they have a much better season, obviously, but also a lot of more high caliber players come in if they know that Kyle McCord is a lock here, which will in turn help him in his draft stock.
And we know that they brought in the LSU quarterback, Ricky Collins, who had been a backup over there for a while, but Ricky Collins, I believe, is a sophomore, so has a lot of eligibility left. Whether or not he starts next year or it is McCord and he learns under McCord for a year, I think he agreed to come here either way. I don't think Ricky Collins agreed to come here because everybody's 100% McCord's gone, because everybody's not 100% McCord's gone. Mm-hmm. Also, one last thing on the Fran Brown thing that I'm just going to say. I believe in Fran Brown enough to the point where I think Fran Brown is going to give Kyle McCord the best advice, regardless of what that does for his team. You don't think Fran Brown wants Kyle McCord to stay? Oh, yeah, he does. He's getting the donors and the NIL, and they're backing up the trucks for Kyle McCord to try to stay money-wise. But I think Fran Brown is a genuine enough man, and I think that the relationship that he has with McCord is so genuine, dating back to, Little League and their parents being friends and all, Fran Brown being friends with his parents and all of that, that Fran Brown is not going to give Kyle McCord bad advice. If Fran Brown thinks, I don't know about next year and you should go to the draft, I think he's going to tell him that.
And that's the thing. I don't think he's ever going to say that just because I think he believes in Fran,
Yes, I agree.
in himself so much that he'll be like, if you want to stay, we're going to do everything we can.
We're going to make it happen.
To make this the best possible situation so that you leave here in an even better place than you would have if you left this year. But moral of the story, you just can't promise that. You can't promise the future.
It is a risk.
And that's what I actually think that Fran will say to Kyle is, end of the day, I can guide you, but this is your life, and this is a decision that you need to make him feel comfortable with.
Yep.
And honestly, if I was a player, that's the exact advice I'd want. I'd want to know that I have the agency to make my own decision on that front.
Yep. And either way, if he wins the appeal and he is granted another year of eligibility, and he said post-Holiday Bowl, his quote was that basically he still has a decision to make. If he gets that waiver, it's not just automatically, I'm staying. It's still a decision. That's what he's saying. Either way, though, like I opened this with saying, it is a risk, right? Any player, if they're foregoing a year of eligibility, it's a risk. It's a risk for Oronde Gadsden to forego a year of eligibility this year and just go to the draft because what could you do next year? Could you improve your draft stock? Whether to stay or whether to go is a gamble. But like I said, I don't really think he loses necessarily either way. I don't think he's in a bad position. He's in a tough position in terms of it really is a tough choice, but I don't think he's in a bad spot either way.
Rachel, stay or go?
Sorry, I had to turn on my mic. I'm here. Hello.
Hi.
Stay or go opinion or okay.
Opinion.
This one's really hard. I'm of the opinion that I do think there is more to be gained in staying than in going right now. I think all year we've been talking about the potential of Kyle in the NFL, and I think a lot of it has been conversations targeted towards he could be a really solid backup, and that's where he would kind of align in what he's looking at with his stock right now. But you have to think that there's an option that's better than that, and I think another year gives him and Fran Brown the potential to discover that.
Yeah, listen, it's a tough schedule, but I feel like that's just going to be the conversation from now until that point, and maybe that's a good thing, you know? I don't know. I feel like after this year and everything I saw, I want to believe again. I feel hope again, and maybe that clouds my judgment, you know? But we'll see. The one other thing we wanted to say, because I think it is interesting when you think about the quarterbacks and to stay or to go. When we were flying back on the plane from San Diego, we were watching Miami and Cam Ward.
An American revelation called the Pop-Tart Bowl.
Right. No, truly. And why it's blanking for me who they were playing against at this point in time. Iowa State. And what happened was it was a really, really tight game.
Great game.
I mean, I'm locked in the whole plane ride.
Yeah.
They're like tied at half. Cam Ward plays the whole first half. He plays outstanding. Actually, both quarterbacks did. And then in the second half, he's sitting out.
And they lose the game.
Because the sorry-ass backup quarterback has to come in and get embarrassed on national TV.
Oh my.
It wasn't his fault. He had nothing to do with it. Like, he literally tried his best.
Yeah.
And everybody knew it, and we felt terrible for this kid. But, like, that to me is the epitome of everything that is wrong with the transfer portal. If you are, or with the whole situation, just the
opt-outs and all
the opt-out, the transfer portal, the declaring for the draft, all of it. Something is messed up with this timeline.
A lot.
Because if you are going to the bowl game and you decide to play in it, you should play for the whole time. And her and I were like going on a rant about this, but like
the
enough
poor guy
is enough.
next to us on the plane.
Oh my god. He literally said, "Y'all have fun, ladies. I'm gonna watch a movie."
And he was from Columbus, Ohio. I'd like to point out. Just take that as you will.
Yep. But like enough is enough already.
Yeah.
Like with the whole injury situation, and well, I just don't want to get hurt. Then why'd you even play in half of it? I would be literally furious.
Irate
if I was a Miami fan.
Miami's had a tough go of it lately.
Miami has had a tough freaking go. You miss the college football playoff, and then you literally lose the bowl game. Like, this was one of the best teams in college football.
I know.
And I'm telling you guys, just so everybody is very clear, if Cam Ward was in, they were not going to lose the game.
No.
It was because he stepped out.
No.
It made the whole thing feel like a goddamn joke. It really did. It felt like the best part about it was watching the Pop-Tart go down into the machine and come out so
and then
everybody could eat
Iowa
it.
State celebrating, and then the ESPN, I believe, cameras every 5 seconds on Cam Ward's face. Oh my God, this backup's in. He can't complete a forward pass, and Cam Ward. I mean, the ESPN cameras were really playing up the Cam Ward angle, as they should have. Here's what it is with
ESPN
this.
cameras were cooking.
They knew what they were doing.
Yeah, they did.
And they had a huge audience because it was the Pop-Tart Bowl, which America loves. Anyways, the thing about this is I totally agree with you. If you're going to play in the game, play in the game. Don't play the first half, because then you get yourself into a situation like this where it's tied at halftime, and sure, it's the Pop-Tart Bowl and it's not the college football playoff and it's just a bowl game, and I know that. But Miami fans, I mean, we're sitting there and we're talking about how their last game that they played in, which was so long ago at this point, nearly a month ago, was that terrible loss to Syracuse at the Dome. All of that happens. It's a mess. Miami's just getting some bad press and all of that. And then they go out there and the Pop-Tart Bowl, it's just a terrible end to what was really a great season for Miami and Cam Ward before this. In my opinion, and I've heard a lot of college football outlets and sources report this, it was allegedly a planned decision, which we were kind of sitting there watching being like, how could it not be? That the coaching staff was in on it, he was playing one half. Something else I'd like to point out is, if you're going to risk injury for one half of this game, I mean, maybe that's poor betting odds, but just it's 30 more minutes. What's going to happen in 30 more minutes? And even if it does, they all have insurance policies these days. That's something else that we're not talking about.
I know.
There's insurance on these things. So it's not like you're going to lose your entire whatever. No. There's plans in place. Mm-hmm. I just think whether it was his decision or whether it was the coaching staff's decision, because there are some people have said that maybe it was Mario Cristobal's decision, it was the coaching staff decision, it was a poor one. Whoever made that call, it was a poor call, because that's all fine finding good to say before the game, oh, no matter how it's going, you're out at halftime. Well, then it's tied at halftime. And you know what? Even if it was the coaching staff's decision, it comes down on Cam Ward. Cam Ward looks like the idiot when the ESPN cameras are zooming in on him not playing. Because the Miami, then this is the other thing. If it was the coaching staff's decision, they didn't come out and take responsibility for it when he took all the heat.
I don't
so
think
if
it was
that
their
was up to
decision.
Mario Cristobal and the coaching staff, they let Cam Ward take the heat. Our poster just fell off the wall because I'm yelling.
Yeah, because you're freaking yelling up a storm. All the
Sorry.
posters are scared of you.
The last thing I have to say is it was a bad decision. It reflected poorly on Cam Ward. Do I think it necessarily affects his draft stock? No, but it doesn't reflect positively on him. It doesn't.
That's my last note, is quite honestly, if I was someone who was looking at, I was a scout, an NFL scout, and I'm watching this whole situation play out, that doesn't seem like a quarterback that I want on my team in that moment. Because to me, if it was his decision, it struck me as selfish.
I agree.
It struck me as me before the team. I before the team. That is not the kind of quarterback who I'd want on my team. And quite honestly, then you look at a guy like Kyle McCord, who's like, I'm going to go in and I'm going to play the whole game because, of course, that's just the right thing to do. I look at a quality like that, which I do think that some of these scouts really value, is like the quality and the traits of the person. And I'm seeing two completely different things right there.
I know.
And I'm not liking what I see from Cam Ward on that side of things.
No, I totally agree. When you finish off on a note where I know Cam Ward only went to Miami for a year, and so he's not really, how much does he actually care about Miami? No one's sure. But whether or not, regardless of that, that's your team. If Kyle McCord did that, Syracuse fans would have been irate.
And they should have been.
That is your team that you led all year. You're the quarterback. You are the facilitator of the offense. And what that team either goes or doesn't go, depending on you. And so to opt out when it's tied at halftime, to me, is just, I can't respect it. It's a really, really, really tough look.
Like, that's unforgivable.
Unforgivable.
Like, it's tied at halftime. That is unfathomable.
And I'm just unfathomable. And I'm just going to say it because this is a Syracuse. I'm so worked up right now. This is a Syracuse podcast, so I'm just going to say it. I am well aware that Cam Ward and Kyle McCord are not in the same ballpark of NFL draft projections. I know that. But the last two games of the season, just take a look at what happened to Cam Ward and Kyle McCord. McCord beat him head-to-head. There's a lot of other reasons for that were not necessarily Cam Ward's fault. McCord beat him head-to-head at Syracuse, at the Dome. And then in their bowl games, McCord obviously is playing, I guess you'd say, a lesser opponent in Washington State. However, Syracuse is winning the game 52-35, and Kyle McCord is out there until the very last damn snap.
The very last snap.
Thank you.
We even thought in the last drive, like, oh, why do they still have him out there? Like, you don't really need him out there anymore. Nope. Came back out.
Because that's his team.
Not even that, just also taking the single season passing record in the ACC, which
Also
is the
that.
same.
Right.
But
Like, whatever. Listen, end of the day, I just feel like we need a better system with this stuff because, quite honestly, I know nobody cares about the ratings in this debate, but it was truthfully bad TV. I should have just watched a full-length movie
Terrible TV.
instead of watching the second half of that game. And even beyond that, I just can't even imagine for the fans who travel there, for the fans who take the trip to actually go and watch. I get it that it's in Florida too, right? Pop-Tart Bowl?
Yeah.
Not it's not across the country, but still, like, who wouldn't feel disappointed by that? And if the whole idea is, well, everyone's going to be able to make their own decisions and opt out when they choose, and the bowl games are just going to be a throwaway, then why even play them?
Right.
Why even get it to the point where it feels like this amazing competitive game at halftime to then just fall off, opt out, and now the whole thing really feels like a joke?
Right.
Like, it doesn't really feel like a real game anymore. I can't comprehend that. I feel like even the old timers of the sport would agree with me. Like, in any sport, like, you just don't hear of that where players, besides football, are just like, nah, not the last game.
Me
Sorry.
before the team. See y'all never again.
I gotta peace out. I gotta focus on me. Like that. It's a team sport.
I know. And there's a lot, that's a broader discussion, right? There's a lot broken with college football right now with the opt-outs process, which is what we're talking about right now, but the portal and the timing, all of that, and you're seeing guys leave their team before they're about to be in the college football playoff with the Penn State backup quarterback and other guys, and just even the playoff structure, all of that. There's a lot right now that I think we're going to look back on, this little, I guess you would say, transitory era of college football into a new modern era, and we're going to be like, wow, those years between whatever you want to say, but that stretch of years was kind of a mess. And that's how I feel right now. It's kind of a mess.
And I'm not, just to say it, completely blaming. Like the Cam Ward thing, I sort of did feel like that was on you because he really could have played and he just decided not to, or
Yeah.
someone chose to tell him that he couldn't. But like with the Penn State backup quarterback, like to me, I'm blaming the system for that.
What was he supposed to do?
What the hell was he supposed to do?
Transfer past the. It sucks. You're leaving your team when they're making a deep now run into the playoffs, but he couldn't transfer. Drew Aller is staying. He was not going to start next year, and he could not transfer past a certain day. What's he supposed to do?
I don't blame him for it. There's nothing he could have done.
No.
So change the systems, y'all. Make it easier for these players to actually make the right decision and the decisions that they want to make.
Yep.
Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you back here again when we have more to talk about next week.